And all we're going to be doing is adding some exception handling to our window class so that if you try to do something out of bounds, you'll throw an out of bounds exception, and then that'll be it. Any questions before we get started? Yeah. To both. So I'll add the test cases to the handout because that's where I actually like do the stuff on my own computer and I upload it there. And those test cases will also be updated on Codathon as well. So that because right now it's not actually even running all the tests that you have on the handout, it's only like running the first one. Yeah. When we have the final project, I'm hoping to have the final project out to you by the end of next week. So you'll have like 2 to 1.5 weeks to work on it. Well, I mean, like, so in terms of what's due, you have the wrapper, which is really easy. You'll have exception handling, very easy as well. And then you will have the final project. Like those of you that did the final or the current homework assignment, how long did it take you to do? Like less than an hour for some people, a couple hours maybe to do the current assignment. It's not that bad. Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. Like I uploaded you aren't allowed to upload the problem directory.
Oh, okay. I think I have an idea of how to fix it. For now, what you can do is you can upload to the editor, I believe. We will not be meeting during the scheduled final. I'll probably just have like extra office hours during finals week. Yes. The course's wrapper, yes, is going to need to be due before the end of the quarter because your next assignment will build on top of that. Okay. With all that being said, let's pick up from where we left off. So what we wanted to do is we wanted the ability to add in an AI to our game so that we could be able to get moves from both the human and the AI player. So we're going to have to use some inheritance here to make that happen. So one thing that we could think about for doing right now is we could create some new classes like player, human player, AI player, and those players could have Pokemon that they could battle with, or we could make like the Pokemons like be inherited from themselves and then have like an AI Pokemon and a player-controlled Pokemon, which I'm not such a fan of in terms of the design. So most of you don't like the design either, so we'll go with having 2 people that we're able to do things from. So we'll make our new class. It's going to be a player. And what things are you going to want to, oops. Oh wait, that's part of the thing. What are you complaining about? So what things are you going to want to be able to get from a player or want a player to do? Yeah, so players might have as their members I don't know, they're just going to have a Pokemon for right now. Oops, Pokemon for this. And they're going to have a Pokemon called Pimon. Anything else that all players should have or we want them all to be able to do? Right, we should want them to be able to get a move, which would be public. So right now we'll just do void get move. It's const right now. Or maybe not exactly const because the AI might need to update some of his state. Make that happen. Anything else? Get Pokemon, right? Like before we figure out like all these things that they should have, maybe we want to like use them first before we go and we like start designing things inside here, right? Because there's 2 ways of doing it. Bottom up, we're like, okay, here's all the things that we need and we keep building on top of it. That's not my preferred way of doing things. It's top down, like here's the highest, most level, and work our way down and get the details built up as we find that we need them. So we'll just leave stuff right now and we'll figure out later on what needs to happen. So if we have a Pokemon battle now, so is a Pokemon battle going to consist of Pokemon anymore? Or it's going to consist of 2 players, right? So pound include player. And so this guy is going to have to change. He's going to need to go away. But now we need to have a vector of what? I can't have a vector of player. Right? We have to have a vector of player pointers, right? Because we're eventually going to have a human player and like an AI player. And if we just say a vector of player, that's probably not going to work because a player is going to need to be a abstract class, right? It's going to have at least one virtual method. And the other thing that's going to be an issue is, well, if it wasn't an abstract class, the issue that we would have is that we wouldn't be making necessarily enough space for those objects. So we also are going to need to include memory. This. And I don't just want a vector of player pointers. I want an std : vector of unique pointers to player. Right? Because we want to assert ownership over those things, and like when our vector gets destroyed, we want all of those members to be destroyed as well, so that we don't accidentally leak space. So this seems good. Now, maybe what we need to do is look over at battle. And I guess we also need to maybe change how our constructor works because we couldn't have Pokemon anymore. Let's comment this out. So now we're not going to have a vector of Pokemon as our thing. We're going to need to have what? Well, we could have a vector of unique player pointers. If players are copyable, that might not work as well. So maybe what we have right now is we take no arguments, and maybe we have 2 methods to add a player. That would work. Do you want to have like where we take in a vector of unique player pointers? Or do you want to just have a method where we just can like add a player to the battle after it's created? Okay, so we can do that now. And so now we need a new method to do an add player. So void add player. And what should this take as an argument? It depends on if like we want to construct the players here or not. So we could have something like, if we want to differentiate, we could have like add human player, void add AI player. If we want to differentiate, or what we could do is when we add players, we could assume that those players exist until after the scope of the battle is completed, and you could receive references to them, and then you could put pointers to those references inside. But it assumes whether like the players belong to the battle or not. Oh, then it would delete it. So we probably want to like add a human player and add an AI player over here. Or this thing gets complicated, I guess, all of a sudden. So we could have it like this, a unique pointer to a player. Oh, I froze. Oh, there we go. Player pointer. You could have it where we take in a right-hand side reference so that we can move the ownership into ourselves. Or we could have like a vector of unique player pointer right-hand side references. Or again, then we could like transfer the ownership to be ourselves for the battle. Or how else would you like to add a player in? So you want to pass all the arguments to construct a player into here? So then what does a player need to build a player? They need a Pokemon, right? And do they need anything else? Maybe like a name and a Pokemon? I don't know. Okay, that seems fine. So we'll make sure that people have been added first. And now in our battle, well, what do we need to do? This guy over here says, this function do? Oh, nothing. That's fine. So while all Pokemon are conscious, that still seems good. Again, because each player only has one thing. We print the Pokemon's HP, that's fine, right? Now we probably want to say like attack equals, well, I have to say like get current player dot get move, something like this, right? And maybe it gives us back an attack that player wants to use. And then here we might still have like get attacking Pokemon attack and then change the turn and then we can print the winner. This seems to be like one of the only few areas we would need to make changes for this to work out. Right? Or the other place that we might need to do, oh yeah, getting the move might be the only thing. Any questions so far? Yeah. We can probably ask, we're probably going to need to change some things over here for getting the attacking Pokemon because we don't have that list of Pokemon anymore. But we can probably like get the current player and then ask them for what their attack is. So what do you guys want to do first? Do you want to do get current player or do you want to do get move? Okay, get current player then. We also still need to, as we said, do these functions as well, where we add a human player and add an AI player. So we might have inside of ourselves a player reference, get current player. So how do we get the current player? I think we have like something called like turn. Whose turn? Oh, Can I dereference it because we get back the pointer and the pointer needs to be dereferenced so that we actually can return the player to the reference. So great, that's done. We now also need to be able to do probably a lot of things need to change here. So do we want to do get move next? Do we want to do add a player? Yeah. Which is fine because we only need to be able to access the abstract member get move, right? Or get Pokemon, right? Which may not be abstract. Yes, for an abstract class, you can have a reference to it or a pointer to it, but you cannot have an instance of it. Everything good so far? So what do you guys want to do next? Add human player, add AI player. Okay, add human player, sure. So now over here in player.h, we'll make this get move, which needs to return an attack, which you saw earlier. Include attack. This should probably be like, right now we're const. Oh, again, well, we can't be const because it might need to modify the AI state. Or actually, I'll show you something fun. Wait, git move is not virtual. Oh yeah, virtual. Thank you. And this might be a const attack reference right now. And so we need to create some new C++ classes. Oh, I think we said that players had a name, right? So do all players have names? Sure. What? Yeah, so we need to have over here an std : string name. And then down here, we're gonna need to provide some stuff like code generate a getter for name right now. And then this guy will be virtual just in case anybody wants to change how they get their name. They probably don't, but make it a possibility. And then we're gonna go add in our human player. And so who should human player inherit from? Player, yep. And what level should we inherit from player? Public player. And so we need to provide a constructor here, which again, we can also provide a constructor back here for player. Code. It probably needs both. Seems fine. And so over here in human player, we'll also need to generate a constructor. Great, so that's just going to initialize our stuff. And then we also needed a attack. Move. And so what do we want to do here in, why is this complaining? Well, no, I mean, oh, why did it put it before the class? It's supposed to go in the CPP file. So a lot of the code that we can take from here is we can steal it from what we were doing earlier, right? From the Pokemon battle, because that assumed that two human players were going to be interacting. Not there, Pokemon battle. Oh, did we? Well, I forgot where we had all that. Get attacked from user. That makes sense. Let's go steal some of this stuff. Probably, yeah. Steal the entire thing for right now. And we'll go put this over into human player. We're going to need to include IOStream to make this work. So we don't have getting attacking Pokemon anymore, right? We just have Pimon. How I spelled it? Pimon. But we probably don't want to say pmon anymore. We probably want to say, you know, get name. It's your turn. And then the other thing I think I messed up on over here in player is these shouldn't be private. They should be protected, right? Because we want to be able to access them inside of our children. So declare. So we can say, hey, whatever your name, it's your turn. We might say something like, here are, and then pmon.getName moves, right? So we list up their names, and then again, we don't need to go through the attacking Pokemon. We just have our Pokemon, and then we say, you know, we go through each of them and we list out their names. They enter the number of the attack that they want to use. We get it in, and then, you know, pmon.getAttack at whatever the number is they entered. Yeah. So if you remember that when you have something that's private, who's the only person that has access to that? That class, right? So is the child, so is a human player like actually just a player? No, I mean, it inherits from player, right? It's a child of player. So your children don't have access to your private members, right? But your children have access to your public or your protected members, right? But only your children have access to the protected members. So I don't want everybody to be able to access these things, just my children. So I change it to be protected. Because as private, I could not access pmon anymore. So the children do have a member variable called pmon, right? It's just now they're able to access it, or access that portion of their parent, right? Because every child is at least their parent. So I have all my parent parts plus more. Any other questions? Okay, so we now have our player created. And I guess maybe the next thing that we want to do is an AI player. And an AI player is a player. And we will inherit publicly from player. And so we're going to have a constructor here, and I guess we will take in a name just like before. So code generate. Great. And then we also need to override move. So how should our AI get its move? We'll just have it like randomly pick the move for it to use. So I'm going to use the C style randomness because I'm not too familiar with the C++ style. So stdlib is the stuff that has the randomness, and to get a random number between 0 and the maximum value, you call rand, right? But we want to limit that value that we get to be between 0 and the number of moves that Pokemon has. So we would say something like, you know, int move choice is equal to rand on pmon dot get attacks dot size. So again, rand is going to generate a random number between 0 and the maximum value that can be generated. And so if we mod by something, right, it's going to make it so that it's going to be between 0 and the value that we mod it by -1. Right, the integer will be in between that range, right? Because if you mod something by, say, 10, the value can be between 0 and 9 as your leftover, right? If you mod something by 20, between 0 and 19 as your leftover. So here's our move choice, and then we can just say return a pmon.getAttack at move choice. Great, our AI is complete. right? We're not doing something super complicated here for what move we're going to have our Pokemon do, but you can see that, or our AI do, but you can see that we have the option here of doing more complicated things if we wanted to. Yeah. So, like, if you think about the vector of attacks, right, it has indices between 0 and size -1. So I need to generate a number between 0 and size -1 inclusive, which is what the modding is going to be doing. It's going to help me, it's going to make sure that that number is between 0 and size -1. Anything else? So great. Player is done. Now we have some more stuff to go back to do in Pokemon battle because everything got messed up. We now no longer need this get attack from user anymore, right? We can just delete this. Right, I didn't want to delete the whole file. I don't think we're calling get attack from user in main, right? So we're not. It's not here anymore anyway. And now in on battle.h. We do need to fix that, I agree. All right, I just think this is gone now. So battle seems to be looking fine, right? So we'll always print out whoever their HP is. We will get the current player's move, or do we? And then we will always get the attack from whoever is attacking, and then change the turn. One thing that we might want to do is when we say attack over here, we might want to print like what attack they used somewhere along the lines, but let's make things work first before we make things pretty. So the next thing that we want to see is if all Pokemon are conscious. So we probably now need to ask their players, right, some information about their Pokemon. So that's going to need to fall under player because all players we're going to need to ask. Go away. So do we want to ask that player if all their Pokemon are conscious? Or do we want to ask them for like the number of conscious Pokemon they have? Or do we just want to ask them for their Pokemon? Right, because like if we wanted to make it a little bit more extensible for the future, if we wanted to have like multiple Pokemon fighting, maybe asking for how many are conscious is useful. But I also understand that just like for terms of expediency, if we just got their Pokemon, it would make things really easy. So we might have over here as public, like, I mean, do we want to make this a vector of Pokemon where they just have one? No, we're just gonna have one Pokemon right now. Yeah. Oh. So for right now, we might just have, you know, if Pokemon dot is conscious, return 1, else return 0. I mean, that's what we have to work with right now. Or again, if we wanted to, we might have something like virtual bool are all Pokemon. Here you just might return get number of conscious Pokemon is greater than 0. And back in Pokemon battle, we can just go arrow. Turn false, also turn true. This seems fixed now, more or less. We wanted to change the turn. This is now just going to be players. We don't want. So if we want to get the attacking Pokemon still, how can we do that? We have something like players dot at whose turn, right? Get that person, then ask them for their Pokemon. I don't know if we need it anymore, but do we need this anymore? No, no. Probably doesn't need to be used there. Probably doesn't need to be used there. So we can probably just get rid of it. Or do we still want it? But we still might want to be able to get the attacking Pokemon, so we probably should still have this in here. So this would be maybe over here in player .h we have a virtual Pokemon reference get active Pokemon, and then a const one. Because again, like if we wanted to extend this later on to have multiple Pokemon battle, here we're interested in who's going on right now, who's actually fighting. But for right now, this is just going to be really easy in that we can just return Pmon because we only have one. And then over here, we can also just return Pmon. Oh, one other thing that I learned is for your homework, if you have hashtags in your path name, pound signs, it breaks some things for CMake. So if you're naming things like, you know, homework hashtag 2, just change it to homework 2. Otherwise, it won't work. In case you encounter that problem. Well, it's not like CMake. It's one of the library modules inside CMake that can't handle hashtags in the path name. I don't know why, but. So get defending Pokemon. So for I guess I should actually change this to be here. We're going to be lazy here on this one. Okay, there we go. And we can repeat. Eventually, I will show you a way of how you can cheat somewhat unsafely so that you don't have to keep rewriting this. But again, it's somewhat unsafe. So for printing the Pokemon HP, we would now have something like for oops. Oops. Okay, so I think we're mostly done fixing things. I think we still have 2 more things to add though. We have to be able to both add a human player and to be able to ST. We have an add human player? Oh, I guess not now. So how do we go about adding a human player to our game? We have to make them. How do we do that? How do we do that? We're not going to be using new because we're making unique pointers, so we're going to call make unique, right? So we do something like players.pushback, right? std : make unique. And what do we want to make a unique? Because we have to specify what we're trying to make here. Human player, right? Which means I need to go back here to, actually not in here. And we should pass in their name and their Pokemon. Great. We've now added in a human player. How do you think we are going to go and add in an AI player? The same thing, except we don't want to add in a human player, we want to add in a AI player. Great, so now we're able to add in people. And let's see, is there anything else here that seems to be messed up? No. So what we'll do is we'll start off with 2 human players like we had before, and then we'll try switching it up and see if like the AI player makes sense and that thing seems to still be working. Sound good? So we'll pop back out over here to main. And again, we can still have, our Pokemon can be Professor Oak and Professor Chen. Right, so we create a battle. Oops, no, we don't want a battle yet. On battle. So battle.add human player. So who do you want our first human player to be? What do you want their name to be? Sure. And who's my Pokemon going to be? Okay. His name Professor Chen. And then battle.add human player. Who do we want our second human player to be? To be you guys. And I guess you guys are getting Professor Oak.
No, Chen.
No, it's too late. So let's see if things compile. Oops. Wait, oh, we didn't make a constructor here. Great, done. Because we don't have anything, we do have to do some things in here, my bad. So we have to make sure that we set whose turn to be. 0. Otherwise, it won't be necessarily. This turn should be 0. Great. Otherwise, it's undefined what its value is going to be. So great, it built, which you know that's the first hurdle. Second hurdle is like actually getting things to work. Okay, so things are up. So apparently it's my move, and I get to choose my attacks, and I'll try using quick attack. And again, we didn't ever do anything with like missing or like hitting, which we could maybe add in later on in the class if we have time. And so now it's your turn, class. So which attack do you guys want to use? Bolt tackle. Okay, so took some damage. So maybe again I'll use a quick attack. What do you guys want to use? Sure, bolt tackle, really interesting. So Professor Chen's coming at you. He's gonna hit you at the midterm. Oh my gosh, you guys have 10 HP left, so maybe you try to bolt tackle again. Oh, you left me with 2 HP, but you guys are going down as he hits you with another quick attack. So then Chen won the battle, right? So it seems to be working correctly with 2 human players, right? So let's try to make one of these guys an AI now and see if that still works out. So one thing, if we were using randomness, that you should do first is you should seed the random number generator, which maybe we'll do that here inside of Pokemon Battle.h, battle.cpp, inside the constructor. So we're going to pound include cstdlib, and then here inside my constructor, I will initialize my random. It's always going to have the same behavior if I put a constant value here. So if you want it to like not be constant, you would seed it with like the current time, for example. So if we want time, we have to include like C time, I think. And then here we could say, you know, time of null pointer. And that'll work for seeding the time. The hard thing is, though, if you start doing this at the beginning, it's harder to test because we're going to get different behavior on different go-arounds, and so we might be triggering some of the errors some of the time, but not all the time. So you'd want to choose a constant seed that's going to get you to like trigger the errors all the time, and then so you're able to debug successfully. So for right now, this is what you would do if you wanted it to be purely random. But right now, we'll just start out with just some number here while we're testing, and we'll take out this line. Oops, not time. Here. Okay, so we'll try going again after we make it be a. So we're going to add, I will become the AI player, and we're going to see what's going to happen. So here we go. So you can see that I already took my turn, right? And apparently I decided to use the midterm attack on you because you lost a lot of HP. Right, and so one of the things that we're kind of seeing here that's like not like so useful in terms of user interface wise is that we're not putting out what attacks the Pokemon are using. So it would be really good information to start adding, as well as like the damage that it's doing would be good to be adding. But we'll see if it's, you know, finishing first. So maybe again you guys do like a quick attack, and then you guys apparently are still alive. So maybe you bolt tackle. Oh, he hit you with another quick attack. Right, and then you guys died, but it seemed to be working. And then if you really wanted to, right, we could have, instead of adding two, one AI, one human, you could have it where you have like 2 AI players. And now it would just be like, and then it's going to be like over, and Chen will probably win again. He's really strong. Right? So that's it for today. Next week, we're going to talk about exceptions. Just hold on one second. Talk about exceptions, and then we'll have finished all of the required material that we have to for this course, which you might be like, how did we finish with like a week and a half left or like 2 weeks left? That's because we used like all of your discussion sections for class. So that's like 3 extra weeks of lecture, right? But then we finished like 1 week early, so it's like 2 weeks late. So it's not like No, we really finished early at all because we had to use so much of our discussion time to actually cover for lecture. So we do have some more lecture time. So options for what we could use it for is we can cover some additional topics. So like one thing which you will not be tested on, but they're cool. Like we talk about function pointers to functions. We can also talk about constness, on like how you can like cheat and get around being actually const inside your const members, which is probably useful when we talk about that. And then if we still have extra time, I will just host additional office hours for you guys to get help in. But we got to finish exceptions first, extra topics. If you guys have any other topics you're interested in particular, let me know and we'll try to cover them if I know about them. Yeah. Oh, we do not have enough time for concurrency, I don't think, to be able to do that. But sorry, it's a really good topic though. Again, I will see you guys next week unless I'm seeing you in discussion.